Welcome everyone to the WBA Annual Industry Awards Ceremony. My name is Sarah Colmer and I'm the Marketing Director at the WBA. I believe this is the first time in the WBA Awards long history that we've actually held it virtually. And I'm really delighted to be able to bring this celebration of innovation and excellence to such a wide audience. So let me start by sharing. Over the past few months, we have had literally dozens and dozens of entries submitted for the awards. These entries have been reviewed and considered by a panel of independent judges who are technology experts in their own rights. They score each submission, finalise the shortlist, and ultimately select the winners of each category. So I would like to start by giving them a big thank you for their consideration and time, which is not an insignificant task. I'd also like to thank all of those companies who have taken the time to put together the efforts and the entries to submit to the awards. The feedback from the judges has confirmed that this year has seen the standard rise to even higher levels. I would like to thank everybody who has taken part. I'd also like to start off by giving a big thank you to our sponsors, Boingo, Cisco, Intel, Aptilo, Global Reach, Huawei, Single Digits, STL, Juniper, ASIA, Cognitive, On Semiconductor and Y-Connect. We really appreciate your support in bringing the Wireless Global Congress to the industry. The agenda today will run for about 2 hours. We have 18 shortlisted companies and we will share their innovation in true Oscar style by sharing some video outtakes before revealing the winners. But today, as well as celebrating all of our shortlisted candidates, we have invited some very special guest speakers who will share with you some of their insights and expertise about our industry. So I would like to start with Chris Bruce. Chris is the Managing Director of Global Reach Technology. Global Reach deliver world-class Wi-Fi authentication and user experience services to operators globally. Chris has a long history with the WBA, firstly with BT as one of the founding members, when Chris served as chairman and then co-chair. And then more recently with Global Reach, Chris continues to serve as a WBA board member. So I would like to hand over to Chris to talk about Wi-Fi in 2020. Chris?
Okay, thank you, Sarah, and thank you for the introduction. And hi, everyone. Welcome to the WBA Awards. So I'd like to, hopefully you can see my slides okay, Sarah?
Yes, they're fine.
I'd like to use this opportunity to reflect on the year we've had in sort of Oscar style, looking back over the year. A strange year, one of disruption, one of transformation, and I think one of opportunity. And despite all the challenges that we've had with the COVID and the like, I think we'll look back on this year as setting the foundations for a new trajectory, new opportunity for Wi-Fi and its convergence with other technologies. So let's sort of walk through that. So in this year's entries, you will see, as Sarah said, some fantastic contributions and entries covering a range of technologies and, most importantly, applications. I think the great thing about the WBA has always been that it's not a talking shop, it's not a specifications group, it's not a standards body as such. What it does is roll its sleeves up, take these specifications and do something with it, create an output focused on the real user experience as opposed to what it says in a document. And I think the unique combination of members of the WBA, operators, technology companies, hardware, software, and all the other parties that make it happen in between, the facilitators, the service providers. I think that sets us apart from almost any other body in the industry, in that we actually show the technology and how it can be used. And this year in particular, I think there's three areas that stand out. Progress towards cellular and Wi-Fi convergence, a topic for the WBA for a number of years, but you can really see it coming to the fore now, really happening. Secondly, deployment of Wi-Fi and Passpoint on a really large scale. This is not something that's theoretical now. It is a reality. So, nobody should tell you that this hasn't happened or this is not taking off, because that's just not the case. And then finally, Wi-Fi 6. Well, this is such a step change in capability and technology. If Wi-Fi 5 was not Wi-Fi growing up, then this really is Wi-Fi coming of age. The move from 5 to 6 is a huge step change in technology and capability, and really creates that carrier grade, enterprise grade infrastructure that operators can rely on. And I think that's really the great opportunity. And there's so much discussion and hype about 5G, and I'm a big fan of 5G, but I think often Wi-Fi 6 gets lost in that noise, and actually you have a very credible typically indoor partner ready-made in Wi-Fi 6, capable of matching a number of the aspects of 5G new radio, and probably at a much lower cost. But anyway, as a complementary technology, it stands up and it's on its own 2 feet. So let's just have a little look at the year we've had. Quarter by quarter, what a year. So this year we started with the Wi-Fi really putting forward the notion of Wi-Fi 6. Previously, the artist previously known as 802.11ax. I'm so pleased that we don't have to learn all that alphabet soup of suffixes anymore. So much easier. That we're even thinking about Wi-Fi 7. And then not only have we got Wi-Fi 6, but before you know it, you got Wi-Fi 6E extended into the 6 gigahertz band. So really, we'll hear more about that, I'm sure, in some of the awards. And then just as things were starting off very nicely, something called COVID-19 arrived and locked us down in various countries around the world, put a bit of a break on it. But funny enough, it then drove an increased usage of Wi-Fi as more of us worked from home, stayed at home, learned at home, were entertained at home. And I think that's really one of the things that stood Wi-Fi out this year, is that how it's coped with that huge increase in demand and usage. And then around April, the FCC did something quite remarkable. It approved the use of the 6 gigahertz band, a huge chunk of it, 1200 megahertz of it, in foreign license use for Wi-Fi. And as Chairman Pai said, this is a 4-fold increase in the amount of capacity, radio capacity, used for Wi-Fi, which really opens up the opportunities for new applications to use that spectrum. Of course, we know our own WBA came to market, launched what we'd been working on for a while, open roaming, merged with the Cisco open roaming initiative, who donated the branding, the URLs, the thought, everything into the WBA, and we ended up with one converged WBA naming and one program, which I think has been extremely helpful. There are other federations and other approaches, but increasingly we're seeing them collaborate around the WBA, and I think that's really been the big success of this year, the momentum that's now in place with the standards and methods to really scale this roaming thing. And then as part of the Wi-Fi 6 trials, as I said before, the WBA, I think, is famous for making things happen. Always has been, really putting the technology together and just really testing it, stress testing it as to how it can actually be used. And I was fascinated to hear about the Metis trial in the Midlands in England. Metis Aerospace, a manufacturer of avionics equipment and components for both civil and defense. Very important Wi-Fi 6 deployment with a number of partners from the WBA collaborating to create an indoor factory environment for Wi-Fi 6, so that these machines, some of them quite old looking by some of the pictures, some of them modern, able to be connected to Wi-Fi to allow IoT type applications to be deployed. Since then, Metis has actually applied, I believe, for a 6 gigahertz license, so they're obviously planning to do more with Wi-Fi 6 and perhaps 6E. Then come July, Cisco launched with Virgin the first commercial roaming service in well, in the UK, but it was worldwide with Canary Wharf Group in London. And I'm delighted to say that Global Reach has been assisting in that program as well. More to be done on that, no doubt. And then finally, not finally, but next in July, Ofcom, the UK regulator, approved the use of unlicensed use of the 6 gigahertz spectrum in the UK. So now the ball started to roll, and we've seen other countries follow in quick succession. Then September, well, actually it's been brewing all the way through July, August, MAC randomization and Apple's approach to privacy. Something, as we heard yesterday from Matt McPherson from Cisco, not to be resisted really, because I think data privacy for customers and users is absolutely critical. But it was clearly going to be a disruption to our industry and the traditional way of managing captive portals and identifying returning users. Ultimately, it was enabled, but perhaps not the full way, or at least not yet. So I think as an industry, it really got us thinking, actually, we need to move fast and think differently about how we engage with users and monetize a Wi-Fi service. Then Hotspot 2, Passpoint, became the new brand. The artist previously known as Hotspot 2. I've never used the word Hotspot 2 anymore now. I'm always Passpoint. Although I sometimes think of it as passport. But anyway, Passpoint is us. And certainly, you know, the WBA has been banging the drum on that technology. I know right back from our own experience since 2014, but it's really coming of age now. And I mentioned about Wi-Fi 6 in the 6 gigahertz band. Well, all of a sudden, South Korea, Mexico, Colombia, Peru, and other countries approved its use in the 6 gigahertz band. And then just this month in Spain, the first commercial launch of open roaming in Spain, and on and on and on it goes. And there's a whole program of Wi-Fi 6 and open roaming trials being conducted by the WBA. And as I say, that I think sets us apart from any other organization in that we are deploying it, showing it, improving it, and showing how operators can deliver a great service to customers. So Wi-Fi 6, as I say, what's not to like? It's a step change in previous generations. It's, you know, enables transformational use cases for AI, robotics, augmented reality, virtual reality, you know, digital transformation, a number of things that 5G also promises. Clearly, Wi-Fi 6 is not going to be so great for true mobility, but my contention is indoors, why wouldn't you use it? A lower cost but high performance technology that is understood by enterprises globally, and now with the Wi-Fi 6 variant, really carrier grade complement to 5G new radio. It delivers high performance coverage, great throughput, low latency, and you know, for low mobility requirements, actually probably quite respectable solution. Great for supporting edge computing requirements, and I think it really elevates the importance of identity management. You know, as we're going to receive so many more devices connecting to Wi-Fi 6, the attachment rate is going to increase, and I think as in combination with open roaming, this will really sort of stress our ability to manage all these different identities onto networks and apply the policy appropriately. And then finally, you know, the Wi-Fi Alliance then upgraded Vantage to support both Wi-Fi 6 and WPA 3. So really a busy year. But then what else happened? Well, plenty not to like about COVID-19. But what it did mean, as I said before, is a sharp increase in demand for public Wi-Fi, particularly at home, home working, remote learning, entertainment, Netflix usage going through the roof, Zoom, Teams usage going through the roof. You know, the favorite catchphrase this year has been, you know, sorry, I was on mute. Can you see my presentation slides? We've all got used to it now. I'm having a day off from home working by doing something really unusual by going to the office today. But most of us have got used to this way of working. Now, it has meant that some projects, certainly in our experience, have been delayed where you had physical engineering deployment of Wi-Fi networks. However, there's been, on the other side, there's been an increased focus on connecting the unconnected. And we've seen a number of government initiatives for smart cities and industrial applications to support those folks that just couldn't get online, that really needed that to claim benefits or to be educated, particularly during this year when children's education has been disrupted so badly. So Wi-Fi 6 gigahertz, you know, hugely increases the allocation of spectrum by some fourfold. More data can go through a wider channel, and as I mentioned, it really opens up the way to make low latency, high throughput applications such as AR, HD, and virtual reality experience a reality at a relatively low cost rate. And our as you can see from the quotes here from Chairman Pai of the FCC, you know, really a landmark change put in by the FCC, really showing leadership globally, and we see a number of other countries following. And of course, our own Tiago supporting that. Why wouldn't he? I certainly would. And yeah, I think it's a landmark moment that we will look back upon. Interestingly, just overnight, in a different way, I noticed that the FCC's made a different ruling around TV white space, making that available again, 12 years after the last time, but this time at higher power for those rural remote areas. And I think this whole pandemic is getting regulators to think differently and quite urgently about how to serve customers and users that really need to get online, and Wi-Fi is playing an important part in all of that. So open roaming, so why is it so great? Well, I think fundamentally it radically lowers the barrier to entry. It allows us to scale roaming in a way that we could never do before. It was great on a bilateral basis, but it took a lot of setting up, even though the RIC standard was there and the other methods of working together were there. But this allows us to scale it. And I'm so impressed by how so many companies have got on board. And as far as I'm concerned, this will transform how users get online. And I think for the first time, it allows the enterprise owner the opportunity to participate in roaming. Up until now, it's been a carrier-to-carrier thing, but now fundamentally any enterprise, any vanilla building could conceivably participate in the Open Roaming Federation. And it's a great opportunity to simply augment external mobile coverage at a time where, frankly, I think budgets are going to be a little bit tight. And if I were a mobile operator, I'd be concentrating my CapEx outdoors. And if I can use roaming as a way to turn coverage increase into OpEx costs rather than CapEx costs, I'd look very seriously at this. And it really adds value to other IDPs and other providers of identity to connect their users to networks. And for all of them, this is a kind of a new way of extending reach, extending coverage. And for them, that's a different value proposition from, say, just mobile offload or the traditional captive portal methods of capturing data. Yes, there's challenges around seamless connection and how do you still engage with your user. But as we know with Passpoint, there are venue URL and catbot opportunities to message those users once they're online. And it may be that, yes, you haven't put a barrier in the way, so they have to register. But were they really engaged when they were registering, or was it just a nuisance? This way, you've allowed them to get on, which is what they want to do. They're connected. Then you can send them a system message, and a proportion of those will react to it and go to your web page. A proportion of a much bigger number. Net, you might be ahead. So we shall see how that plays out. And that brings us right back into MAC randomization and what I call the pathway to pass point. It's a bit privacy thing, and I respect that, and I think we have to work with it. We know users are going to be forgotten before too long in terms of their device for privacy reasons, and I can see a renewed interest in delivering pass point profiles, and that's something that certainly my company is fully engaged in, and we are exploring with enterprises that pathway to maintain their user experience and engage with customers. So net, it's been a year of opportunity and challenge, but as the quote says, show me someone who has done something worthwhile, and I'll show you somebody who's overcome adversity. And for me, that probably sums up this year. But I think out of it, there will be something worthwhile. We'll see the foundations of the next growth and trajectory of Wi-Fi. Thank you for your attention.
Help to take off mute. Thank you very much for that whistle-stop tour through 2020. It is truly amazing sometimes how much we manage to do in such a short time, and I think the industry has definitely seen that happening. So next up, I'd like to introduce Dr. William Webb, who's the CEO of WebSearch. WebSearch is an independent consultancy, and William has had a very long career at the leading edge of technology, working for companies such as Motorola and then Ofcom, and then more recently as the CEO of the Wireless SIG. William's written numerous books and papers. He's a fellow Institute of Engineering and also at the IEEE. So I'd like to introduce William to talk about where next for telecoms. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Sarah. So a look at telecoms more holistically, not just Wi-Fi, but the whole of the wireless telecom space. And I look at it not from the technical point of view of what are all the wonderful features that come with 5G or with Wi-Fi 6, but what are the economics? Because of course, fundamentally, it's the economics that actually drives the situation of what happens in the real world. And I'll pick up on a number of things that Chris has mentioned very helpfully. I think we're pretty much in alignment with where we're thinking. So why are we bothered? If you believe the hype, then telecoms, and in particular 5G, is about to embark on a wonderful journey. And you can see a number of entities there, very well-known, very renowned entities like the World Economic Forum, that seem to believe that 5G is transformational. It's a revolution, not just an evolution, and it's going to change the world dramatically. As revolutionary as electricity, that's a big, bold statement. And you see the same thing from many other players and from many of those in the value chain. So, if we believed all of that, then we'd probably be saying, what's the problem? We're on the cusp of something dramatic, which is bound to generate huge amounts of revenue. But is that really true? And I think it's worth starting by looking at where the mobile operators are. Because of course, it's the mobile operators that have got to kickstart anything new like 5G. It's them that have got to buy the 5G base stations, the 5G networks, and install them. And only then does it make sense for users to buy 5G phones or for machines to become 5G enabled, and for that to move through. But if we take a long look at what's happened to operators, it's not a pretty picture. So the chart you can see bottom right, it's a bit small and it's a bit squiggly, I'm sorry for that, but essentially the black line is the Vodafone share price over 10 years from 2009 to 2019. The blue line is the AT&T share price. but this could be any two major operators. They're all pretty much the same. And the orange line is the Dow Jones. And over that 10-year period, the Dow Jones has gone up threefold. But the operators, they're back where they started. They haven't grown at all, despite the fact that the main index has gone up by a factor of 3. Their values have gone down to a third, if you like. And if you invested in these, wow, that's a really bad choice to have made. And a lot of the major investors realize this, understandably, and are pretty worried about where the mobile operators are going in the future. And all of the indications that we see in terms of forward predictions for subscriber numbers and for revenues are at best flat. But actually, in practice, we're typically seeing a gentle decline year on year, 2 or 3% typically across the mobile operators for their capex, as competition continually forces prices down. Of course, the mobile operators keep hoping that there's something out there, something in the future that will change that, and perhaps 5G will, and we'll come to look at whether that offers them any kind of relief from their current situation. But in the meantime, they're having to adopt fairly extreme measures, such as almost all of them now are selling off their mask portfolios in an effort to try and reduce their debt burden, such that they can borrow more money to buy 5G spectrum to pay for 5G base stations. And this is not a normal situation. You don't get these poor returns on investment over a 10-year period normally. What would normally happen is, in a situation like this, there will be consolidation. We'd see a number of players get out of the game or merge, and as a result, reducing levels of competition, less pressure on price, more ability to charge bigger margins, and getting back towards a more normal return on investment. But that just isn't possible in the telecoms situation, at least it hasn't been, because of course, any kind of merger is scrutinized by the regulatory authorities, competition and merger authorities or similar, and almost invariably up until now, they have prevented any kind of reduction in competition that might happen in the marketplace. So we're not starting from a great place economically for the mobile operators. Well, what about this great hope that 5G or other developments will realize for them a whole range of new revenue sources that will actually allow that bottom line to grow for the first time for many, many years? So one great hope is the Internet of Things. In 5G, it's got an even broader name, the massive machine connectivity, that there are going to be billions of machines, and this is going to drive a huge increase in new subscriptions, which means new revenue. We've been here before. Back in 2010, Cisco and Ericsson put out a forecast that by 2020, there will be 50 billion connected machines. How many do we have? We have about 8 billion, so less than 20% of that forecast. And almost all of those, more than 90%, are in the home or the office, and they're connected via Wi-Fi or Bluetooth or similar, which is fine, great even, but no good for the mobile operators because, of course, they get no revenue from that. And even worse, you can now go out and buy a SIM card for a cellular connected narrowband IoT, NB-IoT device, which lasts for 10 years, gives you enough data allowance for most sensors, most of the IoT kind of things, like a temperature sensor or a car park sensor or a trash can sensor, for the whole of those 10 years. So that's €1 a year, about $1 a year. Now, that is tiny, tiny compared to what you expect to get from a cellular subscriber. You might get more like $300 a year from a subscriber. You're going to have to sell a lot of these to get to any kind of sensible amount of revenue. And certainly the operators that have been pushing NB-IoT, such as Vodafone, are seeing only about a 2% uptick in their revenue from this. And of course, there's additional costs. 5G does not have its own IoT connectivity solution, despite what it says about promoting massive machine connectivity. It failed to come up with anything new, so it's simply rebranding NB-IoT and calling it 5G. So the connectivity for normal machines, sensors and similar within 5G is exactly what's been in 4G. It's not been successful in 4G. Seems unlikely that rebranding it as 5G is going to materially change that. What 5G will bring, it doesn't yet, but it will do in the next few years, is the ability to connect super machines, machines that require very low latency, very, very low delay, very high data rates, all those kind of aspects. And the application often put forward by the mobile operators or the mobile industry that sort of exemplifies this is remote surgery, which sounds fantastic. But how many remote surgeons do you expect to see walking down the street doing remote surgery? I hope not many. What you can see here in the picture is actually a remote surgery machine. And you can see that you're not going to be walking down the street using it, nor are you going to be sat in a park or in the back of a theatre or anything like that. This is the sort of thing that you will find in a hospital. It's an expensive piece of equipment, and you're not going to connect it over 5G in that case. In fact, you're going to use that blue cable you can see to the side to connect it via fibre. And even if you did connect it over 5G, the number of remote surgeons in the world, I doubt is going to be materially enough to change the economics of 5G provision. And we saw a similar kind of thing with the claim that 5G is going to be needed for autonomous cars. Well, just this week, Tesla said, we do not need any connectivity, not even 2G. Our autonomous cars are autonomous. And you can see it has to be so. There's no point in having an autonomous car that stops and won't start again every time it loses cellular coverage. Or worse, it's involved in some kind of incident when it doesn't have that kind of connectivity. So despite the fact that 5G brings a whole load of new things, it so far looks like a solution looking for a problem. And that makes it difficult to see at the moment that there's going to be a material change in the revenue for the mobile operators as a result of this. There's a potential for a small amount of revenue for equipment manufacturers selling direct to factory owners who want to self-deploy their own solutions within their factory. But that's tiny compared to the size of the overall mobile marketplace. Another claim about 5G, which drives an important point I'll come back to related to Wi-Fi, is that actually it's going to deliver enormous increases in capacity through a lot of small cells, and that capacity increase is going to be needed in order to enable ever greater data usage. So the first problem is outdoor small cells don't increase the capacity much. The chart you can see in the top left shows a red line showing the increase in data capacity for a sector of a macro cell, according to how many small cells reside within that macrocellular sector. And that's how they're normally deployed. You normally start with a macro cell and then add in small cells within that footprint in order to increase the capacity, particularly in areas of high demand, such as a shopping mall or a stadium or some other high footfall area. What you can see is that you do get an increase up until about 3 small cells per sector, but after that it plateaus off. And that's because almost all of the data traffic is indoors. And outdoor small cells are not great at penetrating indoors. They're too low down to get to the higher levels in a building. And they fire down a street, which means they don't have much of an angle of incidence into the building, apart from the ones really close by them. And so the signal level inside tends to be pretty weak. And so actually the case for lots of small cells is low. And indeed, not many operators are actually planning lots of outdoor small cells for that reason. And the case for ever-growing data demand is uncertain. I mean, yes, we have seen a lot of increases in data usage in South Korea for those adopting 5G. But more generally, the growth in data usage is a bit up and down, but it looks like it's on a slowing trajectory. And you can kind of imagine that because there's a certain point where really you can't use anymore. And that point comes at the point broadly where you're consuming as much video on your cell phone as you could possibly want to. And after that, what are you going to do with it? So unclear whether 5G is going to deliver huge increases in capacity and whether that's going to be in any way useful to most of us. And then, as Chris has already mentioned, whether the indoor coverage is going to be resolved via Wi-Fi or cellular 5G. And we see a lot of growth in all sorts of various forms of Wi-Fi, both domestic and carrier grade, which seems to be suggesting to me and to many others that actually Wi-Fi is the most suitable solution for most indoor coverage requirements. Maybe not the most demanding industrial applications, but there aren't a lot of those particularly. And to echo a point Chris made, COVID has actually had a surprising outcome. So most people imagine that COVID has led to massively increased demand for telecoms, and that must be a great benefit to the telcos. Well, as Chris rightly said, of course, for most developed world countries, COVID has meant we spend a lot more time at home. When we're at home, we use Wi-Fi. There's been less use of cellular. And some operators have seen actual declines in use, where, of course, they'd expect over a period of months to see typically a growth in mobile usage. So by and large, it's not changed materially the use in mobile networks overall. It's pushed the demand to different places, away from the cities and into the suburbs. And in some cases, that's stressed out the networks in suburbia, which typically didn't have a lot of capacity built into the cell sites. That can be changed if needed. The developing country picture is quite different because often there's no fixed broadband to the home to deliver a Wi-Fi service, but I'm not going to dwell on that here. The other issue with 5G, of course, is it's being deployed at the moment in cities. And apart from Chris going to the office, we're not going to cities. Cities are ghost towns at the moment. And that means there's very little demand for extra capacity, so little need for more 5G. And it means we're less likely to use 5G because we're not going to be going to the places where it's available. So that makes it less interesting for most of us. It's also resulted in a delay in the Release 16 specifications, which are needed to allow lots of the WYSI features of 5G, the low latency and so on. They are available now, but about 6 months later than was originally expected. And that means that actually, realistically, we're not going to see a lot of what people often think is the real 5G before perhaps 2022. There are some early pushes to get out sort of almost prototype networks that are standalone at this stage, but not for a while. So the push for 5G immediately needed absolutely right now, otherwise our country is going to fall behind and terrible things will happen, looks a lot weaker as a result of COVID, if indeed there was ever that much strength to that particular argument. So let's take a step back. There are all these issues. What would good look like? And if I were asked to design the optimum telecommunications network for a brand new city, let's say, or whatever, something where there was a greenfield, a blank sheet of paper, what would I do? Well, I'd want wireless everywhere because everything is connected wirelessly. Even a lot of things that don't move are wirelessly connected. And I'd look to solve the in-building issue first, because that's where most of the data consumption takes place, at least 80%, probably much more if you take into account smart TVs and all those other kind of things sitting in the home and in the office. And within the building, I would absolutely want to have that radio signal provided from within the building itself, rather than from outside trying to get in through the exterior walls. That is a huge, huge benefit because the signal level is much better. That means you get a better performing network. The building fabric itself then works in your favor, not against you. It reduces the interference between the use of that frequency on that floor or in that building compared to neighboring buildings. That pushes up the capacity, which is one of the reasons why Wi-Fi has been so successful. Within the building, I'd also want to make sure it was Wi-Fi, because there are many devices that can only connect via Wi-Fi and not cellular. So Wi-Fi has to be there. Cellular could be there as well. And in the past, you'd want that because that was your primary voice mechanism. But of course, that's changed over the years. Wi-Fi is now often the main mechanism for voice as well for many people, either via Wi-Fi calling natively built into a mobile phone or via all the sort of apps like WhatsApp that people now often use. for their voice calling systems. So in-building coverage, critical. Then you need something outdoors. But what you need outdoors then becomes much simpler because most of the traffic load has moved to the in-building system. So whilst you need good coverage outdoors, you don't need so much capacity. You can concentrate on using the lower frequency bands, which gives you really good coverage, and effectively extend the network in that way. Now, of course, for in-building to work, you need to have excellent fixed broadband to every building. And that could be fiber, that could be copper, that could be fixed wireless access. And as Chris rightly said, the need for that has become even clearer now during COVID than it was before, although frankly, pretty much every government was worried about the extent of fiber penetration or high-speed broadband already. So my optimum network would have a lot of that provided. It doesn't need to be fiber, it just needs to be fast enough. And we may need government intervention to deliver that in all sorts of areas. So that's what I'd like to see. Of course, that's sort of what we've got, but not exactly. So last slide, let's try and wrap this up. I started off by saying I wanted to focus on where the money was, what does the economic situation mean, and where's new developments, the new technologies that we're getting going to take us. Well, despite all the hype, I find it hard to see how 5G will revitalize the communications industry. It seems to me unlikely that it's going to materially change the revenues for the mobile network operators. Those of us who are consumers will typically not pay more for a 5G service compared to a 4G service. And we're seeing that in terms of all the tariffs pretty much everywhere except South Korea. But everywhere else, 5G tariffs are at best the same as 4G, sometimes cheaper. We're not going to see a significant increase in revenue from machines or from other services. So no material change for the mobile operators, which isn't great given the situation they're already in terms of their share price, their return on investment, and so on. Not great for the manufacturers either. And indeed, just today, Nokia saw a 15% fall in their share price when they announced their last quarter results. These manufacturers are not seeing a lot of uptake in demand, even though they should be, you'd think, given the 5G deployment, because the operators can't afford a lot of equipment. Now, for some of them, they'll win a few contracts on the back of Huawei being banned in certain countries. So you'll see a bit of give and take, and you might see Ericsson, I think, doing relatively well because they pick up a number of contracts that they might otherwise have lost to Huawei or where Huawei are currently being supplying. But overall, as a sector, not a particularly good picture. Again, stable at best, possibly some decline. And most of the other associated industry in and around cellular effectively depends on mobile network operator capital expenditure to pull through investment in whatever it is they deliver. So it's not going to be a great time for the communications industry. The money doesn't appear to be there in 5G. There is some growth. I've been a little skeptical about IoT in the presentation so far, but actually I'm a real fan of IoT. I co-founded a company in IoT a few years ago, ran a standard for some time. I think it will have a material impact on certain sectors like agriculture and healthcare. And there's value to be had there, but it's not so much for the mobile operator. It's probably for the system integrator that can deliver a complete solution into a farm, into a healthcare provider, into a factory or some kind of industrial entity. So I think there is potential return there, but it's a slow, steady growth. It's not a dramatic hockey stick. And Wi-Fi, I agree with everything Chris has said. I think Wi-Fi will become ever more pervasive. The pass point kind of activities, the Google Orion initiatives, all those kind of things mean that Wi-Fi will play an ever greater role as the in-building solution. And that will be helpful to Wi-Fi providers. It will be helpful to virtual network operators and similar who provide a service that couple together Wi-Fi and cellular. Of course, it won't be particularly helpful to the mobile operators because there's no more revenue. It does help in offloading some traffic, but it doesn't help their finances. And actually, it means that we see them less and less as our core communications provider and more just as one piece in a larger communications puzzle. So if that's true, how is the mobile community going to manage over the next 10 years? Are we going to see continual stagnation in share price? It seems to me that we're in a situation that isn't really sustainable. The operators are selling off the family silver in order to survive. And sooner or later, something has to give. And already we're seeing the early signs that some competition authorities might be more amenable to merger. For example, the European Commission announced that actually it didn't think the decision it had made around the potential merger in the UK of 3 and O2 was actually correct, and maybe it should have allowed that merger to take place. Now, it's not a green light, but nevertheless, it's a kind of an amber light towards potential mergers in that space. And once that does turn green, I think there'll be a huge tidal wave of companies trying to benefit from that. So the game for me seems to be for those kind of companies to hang in there, to keep the cost relatively low, and then when regulatory restrictions ease and allow a more natural network evolution, for things to come back to normal and to be able to then see a decent return on investment. So where's the money? Not there yet in outline. And that's me done. Thank you very much.
Well, William, thank you so much for your insight into the industry and what you believe is going to happen. I think without fail, WBA members will agree that Wi-Fi is going to become more pervasive, and I think learning how that's going to happen we'll be covering next week in our webinars. Meanwhile, I'd like to move us on to the awards and to hear all about the great innovations that have been happening out there in the industry in recent months and years. So without further ado, I would like to hand over to Tiago Rodriguez. He's our CEO, and he will lead off the charge on the awards. Tiago.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sarah. First of all, I want to thank you, Chris and William, for their insightful presentations. I think we had a great start for this session, and we can now celebrate all these innovations around Wi-Fi. And I have the honor to present the two initial categories. So the first category that I would like to announce is the Best Wi-Fi Network Operator Award. This category recognizes innovations and achievements in public Wi-Fi network deployed by an operator. Any service provider operating a Wi-Fi network is eligible for this award. And I just want to remind everyone that last year winner was Korea Telecom with their Giga Wi-Fi premium service. The second award is for the Best Wi-Fi Network Technology Award. This award recognizes innovations and advances in the Wi-Fi technology that are commercially deployed and available for the Wi-Fi industry. Any technology provider is eligible for this category, and last year we had the winners were Deutsche Telekom for their seamless connectivity solution and Aptilo Networks for their virtual service provider. So let's take a look on the short list for these categories. So for the Best Wi-Fi Network Operator Awards, the shortlist companies are Liberty Latin America and Aptilo, AT&T Global Reach, Google and Intersection, and Telekom Indonesia. For the Best Wi-Fi Network Technology Award, the shortlist is Cisco, AT&T Global Reach and Ontix, and STL. And now to present you in more detail the submissions and the innovations of all these companies, we would like now to present them their innovations and projects that they developed.
Using the Aptilo service management platform, Liberty Latin America is fast expanding their Wi-Fi footprint by using community Wi-Fi, also called hotspots. In selected markets, every residential CPE becomes a hotspot for their customers. Policy settings ensures that there are no negative impact on customer broadband services. The rollout started with Flow Trinidad. Aptilo and Flow finalized the deployment with 100,000 hotspots in only 45 days. Users connect to Flow Wi-Fi using their Flow ID, an innovative and unique identity management solution used for all Flow's digital services, such as paying bills and accessing Liberty Latin America's OTT partner services like HBO Go and ESPN, to name a few. Flow Wi-Fi have a significant positive impact on the customer experience, which increases loyalty and reduces churn. Flow is also more competitive with a popular and sticky service offering. Thanks to Aptilo SMP and the use of Flow ID, there is very little, if any, customer support required. The aim to expand this Wi-Fi network becomes even more important in the current COVID-19 crisis. With most people working from their homes, the mobile coverage dynamics have changed. Mobile coverage built for office areas now instead needs to be in the residential areas. Community Wi-Fi services are therefore most welcome for offloading of mobile traffic and added capacity.
I'm Chris Bruce. I'm Managing Director of Global Reach Technology. I'd like to talk to you about our work with AT&T, Intersection and their technology partner Google to provide high volume, high scale, seamless offload of cellular traffic onto high speed backhaul based Wi-Fi in New York City using Passpoint, eSIM and seamless authentication. This is a step change in the use of Passpoint for outdoor networks, helping AT&T alleviate traffic congestion and capacity challenges in a busy urban area. The user experience for commuters, visitors and residents in New York City has been that they've been able to access this Wi-Fi without user intervention, downloaded to their SIM by AT&T, with a seamless connection to the Wi-Fi network. And as they stroll between the LTE network and the Wi-Fi, it seamlessly goes from one network to the other. They don't lose their session, and if anything, they'll probably see an increase in the speed of the internet. This has had a huge impact in terms of the offload, with some 5 million sessions a day, some 400 terabytes of data offloaded in a month, 15 terabytes in a day, and year to date in this COVID-affected year, some more than 2 petabytes of data have been offloaded from the cellular network onto the Wi-Fi. I think this is a fantastic showcase for WBA, with its members working together to demonstrate the real application of Passpoint in this real life situation.
Indonesia is a country with thousands of islands endowed by natural resources abundantly and diversity culture. Indonesia is getting faster, more precise, and tough in any life aspect in it. Digital technology played an important role in every life. Telkom Indonesia continues to innovate by presenting Indonesian Wi-Fi service. The only British technology that connect each other is Telkom Indonesia. Telkom Indonesia through its brand Indonesia Wi-Fi is a Wi-Fi network provider that offers exceptional value in providing public and enterprise Wi-Fi services to consumers, also being an example of excellence for the broader Wi-Fi industry. Product owned such as Wi-Fi ID Retail, Wi-Fi Managed Service, Wi-Fi ID Seamless, and much more. Indonesia is the world's largest archipelago country with a population of 237 million people, spread in 34 provinces on more than 70,000 islands served by fiber-based Wi-Fi ID network. Geography will be the biggest challenge to provide services Wi-Fi ID, especially Eastern Indonesia separated the border and wide. Our business innovation are shown by outstanding Wi-Fi services with the most complete Wi-Fi service portfolio that reach all customer segments, starting from enterprise, small medium enterprise, wholesale and retail. Telkom Indonesia also launched a Wigo Wi-Fi corner service product that has a socio-economic impact for society, micro and small medium enterprise partner. Wigo helps local government to build smart cities. Wi-Fi ID is the great internet for Indonesia.
My name is Christian Ducano and I work for Cisco Systems in product management focusing on enterprise wireless. Cisco Systems is a US-based multinational company headquartered in San Jose, center of Silicon Valley in California. Cisco Systems develops, manufactures, and sells networking solutions as well as other high technology products and services. Our submission is titled Creating a More Reliable and Secure Wireless Network with the Cisco RF ASIC. What is the RF ASIC? Well, it's a unified RF engine that focuses on scanning RF bands and to provide real-time analytics. Some of the technical features and accomplishments of the RF ASIC are related to cleaner technology, cleaner spectrum analysis, dual filter DFS, zero-way DFS, fast locate, rogue detection and mitigation, off-channel radio resource management and NDP transmission, and adaptive wireless intrusion and prevention system. Cisco RF ASIC provides a dedicated RF monitoring and analysis radio so that we provide Cisco-specific features related to security, performance, and location, all of these with no compromise, meaning even the performance of the serving radios is increased dramatically. All of these features, all of these improvements lead to an enhanced user experience. Now, from scale and market impact, Cisco Systems is by far the market leader, the WLAN market leader, if you look at any analysts out there, including the Loro Group. Cisco RF ASIC provides a real-time analytics, and when combined with Cisco DNA Assurance and Cisco DNA Spaces, allows our customers to gain RF intelligence and visibility that can be analyzed and used to run the network, the Wi-Fi network, more efficiently. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Chris Bruce. I'm Managing Director of Global Reach Technology. I'd like to tell you about our groundbreaking work with Ontix to deploy London's first outdoor pass-point Wi-Fi network. At the end of 2019, we worked with Ontix to help them deploy a high-speed Wi-Fi network on 17 lampposts in and around Trafalgar Square, one of the highest density, high footfall areas in central London. Lots of commuters, lots of residents, lots of tourists visiting that whole area around Seattle End. We went live just before Christmas, worked with AT&T, who downloaded a profile onto their user SIM, so when they were traveling in London, they would auto-connect onto the Wi-Fi. Arguably, January in London is probably one of the least attractive times to be outdoor loitering around in Trafalgar Square. But despite that, and despite the fact that it's AT&T is obviously an international operator rather than a domestic operator, we still saw on 17 lampposts 4,000 connections a day and a significant amount of data offloaded onto that network during the period of January. If it hadn't been for COVID, I think that volume would have continued to rise all through the year, but obviously that's restricted international travel. But we've certainly demonstrated the power of this technology. And what's interesting is Ontix deployed it alongside a small cell network, and working in partnership with Westminster City Council, we see this as a great platform for deploying smart city services to improve public service delivery across Westminster. Since then, Ontix are planning to roll out further network across retail areas in the busy West End, and we can see this growing exponentially.
Hello everyone, my name is Sanju Nair. I head marketing for network software and services at STL, Sterlite Technologies Limited. At STL, we like to describe ourselves as an integrator of digital networks. We provide optical products, design and deploy large, complex networks, and provide an array of solutions in software and radio access networks. This particular entry is for a product of ours, a very successful product of ours called D-Wi-Fi. Now, what does D-Wi-Fi do? D-Wi-Fi is an integrated, comprehensive, converged Wi-Fi service management platform. It seamlessly integrates with the cellular core and is supported with capabilities like AAA, Wi-Fi 6 compliance, HSS integration, ePDG, PGW integration for support for most OEM providers. But most importantly, it helps telcos deliver a variety of services and use cases that include Wi-Fi calling, Wi-Fi roaming, use cases like or usage scenarios like stadium Wi-Fi, public Wi-Fi, transport scenarios, among others. This product is a very successful product for us, and one of our more recent implementations was for a large telecom provider in Dubai as a part of the Dubai Smart City program. This involved rolling out Wi-Fi services across public spaces like malls, beaches, Dubai International Financial Center, Burj Khalifa, Dubai Taxi, metros and trams, and so on. This is a very successful implementation. Currently, the usage rate is about 75,000 users a day. But most importantly, we help the telecom provider monetize these investments by way of advertisements and loyalty programs. So that's the entry for D-Wi-Fi. Thank you.
Yeah, fantastic results. And I want to start by congratulations to Global Reach, AT&T, Google, and Intersection for their fantastic deployment in New York City with PassPoint doing offload for AT&T. And Chris, I would like to invite you just to say a few words, and congratulations for this award. Is well deserved, and would like to address all this audience. Congratulations, Chris.
Well, thank you, Tiago. And I don't know how well this translates internationally, but I'm gobsmacked and really chuffed with the award, especially as we were up against such really tough competition there and some worthy shortlisted parties in Aptilo and Cisco. So really also very pleased to have worked in partnership with such great companies, AT&T, Google, and Intersection, and been able to demonstrate what I think that WBA is all about. So thank you for the award.
Thank you, Chris. Very well reserved. Congratulations once more. And same for Cisco team. So a big congratulations for their Cisco era FASIC solution to deliver that embedded RF capabilities. I don't know if you can bring up Cisco team, either Matt, Brett. Are you guys there? I believe you are. I would like to give you this chance just to say a few words as winners of this award. I know that you guys are on the audience. Let's see if we can pull you out here to the panelists. Maybe not. Are we able to bring Matt or Brett or both of them?
Hello, Tiago. Can you hear me now?
Oh, yes, Matt. How are you? Congratulations.
My mute was going on and off, and so I wasn't quite sure if I was doing it or Sarah was trying to turn it on and I was turning it off in response or something.
All over to you.
As always, Tiago, we're very much honored to participate in the awards, and we make a considerable investment in what we do around Wi-Fi and Wi-Fi technology. The capability around the ASIC takes it to the next level. Not only driving up higher densities and driving new capabilities around assurance and automation, but I think it makes Wi-Fi a technology that can expand into new verticals. So as usual, we're always honored to submit these awards, and we love the independent panel, which makes these things for us just really meaningful. So we're very appreciative and I'm excited about this. So thanks Tiago and team and the panel.
Yeah, thank you so much, Matt, Chris. Congratulations to both of you. So over to you, Sarah, and we should move on the agenda.
Yes, thank you, and congratulations to both of you. So moving on to the next award category, I'd like to introduce Bruno Thomas. He's our Director of Programs at the Wireless Broadband Alliance. Bruno, take it away.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sarah and Tiago. So, yeah, in fact, I admire the role of the judges here. I hope that there is not much fight going on to select these winners. But yeah, allow me to just introduce the best in home Wi-Fi network. This is really close to WBA work in terms of the projects we do, and it's refreshing to see that we have three, let's say, off-the-shelf and innovative companies coming here. So anyone with innovative consumer-centric in-home Wi-Fi network and services that are commercially available and launched in at least a certain geography can apply. So network operators, technology companies developing products or solutions for in-home Wi-Fi networks and services have applied. A reminder that last year the winner was SK Telecom with their intelligence AI-based in-home Wi-Fi solution. And for this year, we have a short list.
We do. I'm sorry.
Yeah, not a problem. So we have Ambient, Embedded UR, and Minim. So why don't we take a look into their innovations? Thanks, Sarah.
And also, we've got the other award as well, Bruno, just to cover, and then we get into the VT.
Hello, we are developing a platform to organize world Wi-Fi with an AI-based spectrum broker. Today, Wi-Fi is indispensable. Wi-Fi is oxygen. However, Wi-Fi is vulnerable since it uses unlicensed spectrum. Deployment is chaotic. Anyone can deploy their own Wi-Fi network. Every year, 4 billion new devices enter the picture. There is a huge lack of visibility of Wi-Fi performance, and more importantly, there is a humongous waste in the capacity. Today, Wi-Fi ecosystem is trying to address this problem by new hardware or new firmware. And that's what they do for the past 20 years, selling more chipsets and more boxes. It made the Wi-Fi successful by reducing the prices, but created the mess in the spectrum. We approach this problem differently. We develop a client suite and a cloud platform. We utilize the device as a sensor, as well as a remote control agent to set the parameters of the Wi-Fi access points. That's why we call this method mobile managed Wi-Fi. And that can upend the entire vendor ecosystem. Think about this. Which one is a better vehicle to use? If you are going to sell access point, this is the way to go. Otherwise, this is the solution. Not only it provides a user level perspective, but it is also easy to integrate with superior time to market. Ambient invented this method to understand the Wi-Fi performance and also introduce an optimization engine for better spectrum management. For instance, we will be able to provide an interference-free channel to a Netflix or a VR user and distribute the remaining channels to the neighbors. And this is the only way to solve the spectrum problem for good. Wi-Fi performance is also a big issue for service providers. Bad connection hurts users and increases the churn rate, reduces the productivity. For customers, everything is Wi-Fi problem unless otherwise noted. As Ambient, our ambition is to become the first troubleshoot for Wi-Fi, as well as predict a possible customer complaint before they call the service provider. We can serve individual users, enterprise customers, ISPs, OTTs with the same product. Overall, managing the spectrum is controlling the neck of the communication. When you orchestrate from this point, we guarantee the efficiency. Thank you very much.
In just 20 years, mankind has harnessed wireless and the cloud and enabled billions of IoT devices, profoundly changing how we live, work, and play. As we enter the era of AI, keeping up with the rapid pace of technological change and making the right design choices has never been harder. How do you bring together the combined skills to get your next innovation to market on time and on budget without sacrificing quality? That's where we come in. With unique domain expertise in wireless, networking, IoT, and machine learning. By working together, we can accelerate R&D and get you to market faster while your teams focus on what makes your product amazing. For almost 2 decades, Embed UR has helped leading brands bring mainstream networking and telecoms products to market. Our code is embedded in millions of devices in home, enterprise, and carrier networks all across the world. Working with architects, project leaders, and teams in Silicon Valley and Chicago, you tap into hundreds of seasoned engineers without increasing your headcount. Partner with Embed UR and get your next product to market faster. Embed you are. Imagine it. Done.
Galgus. Maximizing wireless performance. Have your customers ever experienced problems with the Wi-Fi connection? Current Wi-Fi networks suffer from a high density of users requesting a large amount of data, and this trend is going to grow exponentially in the next few years with IoT. In modern Wi-Fi deployments, there is a large amount of interference, wasting radio resources and limiting the user experience. Galgus has created its Cognitive Hotspot Technology, or CHT. It is embedded software which can be installed on multiple access points and routers. CHT converts your access points into cognitive intelligent devices, allowing them to measure their surroundings, to collaborate by sharing information, and to jointly optimize radio resources. Your Wi-Fi networks will be automatically managed in a distributed manner without bottlenecks or central controllers, enjoying high scalability and simple installation. With CHT, your access points become intelligent, releasing the true potential of your Wi-Fi network, improving the speed of your connection up to 5 times. But how does CHT work? Let us illustrate how our technology solves major problems in a typical wireless deployment. Imagine a scenario with various APs. An access point has 2 radios, one on 5 GHz and one on 2.4 GHz. This orange dot is a user connected to the 5 GHz radio, and these are several users connected to the 2 available radios of access point 1. Ideally, all users should be fairly distributed between access points and radios, enjoying the best signal strength and throughput. However, this isn't how it happens in real life. Fortunately, CHT has solved some major Wi-Fi problems. Let us introduce some of our algorithms for automatic optimization, smart roaming, automatic channel assignment, load balancing, and automatic power control.
Hello everyone, this is Nicholas from Huawei Datacom product line. Manufacturing factories are developing towards digitalization, wireless, and intelligence. Wi-Fi 6 will play an important role in factory ICT infrastructure for flexible manufacturing, improve production efficiency. As we know, manufacturing factory scenarios are totally different from common enterprise scenarios. Factory has higher requirements on wireless bandwidth, capacity, and low latency. Huawei Air-Engine Wi-Fi 6 solution can meet the requirements. Huawei's idea is to change the Wi-Fi network from best effort delivery to high Qs guarantee. Now, let's see customer seeing after using Huawei solution.
非常感谢华为在这次就宁德生产制造基地当中对我们进行的产品的支持和技术的保障。那么这次我们选取了华为的 AI Engine WiFi 6的技术，以及Cloud Engine 那个交换机的一个方案，他们构筑的比较高品质的、比较低延时、已经无阻塞的网络的，保证了我们这整个宁德生产制造基地往智慧化方向发展。那么前面讲到的那个就是 AGV 的那个物流小车，我们后来选取的呢也是华为的那个无损漫游的方案，那么使得我们这些 AGV 小车在总的有6.2万平方米的这个仓储空间内，那么整个运行几周下来，没有任何那个漫游终端的情况啊。我们选取了华为的那个 Campus Insight 基于 AC 的 Campus Insight 产品，那么这个产品呢的确不错，就是它能够帮我们监控到每个终端的连接的一个情况，然后它根据大数据的一个建模，能够去分析那些可能导致用户体验不佳的一些及时的一个定位、一些故障点。那么加大降低了我们运维的一些那个复杂度，然后也提升了我们用户的体验。好，谢谢大家。
Well, congratulations to both winners. Fantastic projects and missions. I know there have been lots of submissions for these categories. But yes, so I think allow me to congratulate Minim for being awarded with the specific innovation they bring. So in fact, it's bring your own network solution, tackling this massive pandemic problem. Indeed, security and management is a key topic in nowadays life, and is impacting millions of newly remote workers. So with this in mind, I would like to invite Gray Shinovet, Minimum CEO, and Jeremy Hitchcock, which is the founder and executive chairman, to please share a few words with the audience.
Great. Well, thank you so much for having us. And I'm actually joined today by Liz Hitchcock, another one of our co-founders. So I guess I'll start by saying it's super exciting for us, and I think for all of the people that were shortlisted, it's so exciting to be at a time where the work that we are doing really is what makes a difference for people's lives all around the world. Every one of those the finalists is working in a space that really is making life work for people as they grapple with the pandemic. So, I think that from our perspective, in March 2020, over 16 million knowledge workers in the US alone began telecommuting. And we think that's only the beginning. By the end of 2021, it's projected that 1/3 of workers globally will be working multiple days at home per week. So this huge challenge that we have is that IT organizations need to adapt. The office has exploded into employee homes, but IT support infrastructure has not. So employees are left to wrestle with unreliable Wi-Fi, network connection issues, and family devices with no cybersecurity threat protection. For the employer, this can lead to lower productivity, infiltrated systems, and zero visibility to improve. So that's where we came in. Starting this spring, we adapted our technology to create the Bring Your Own Network platform that transforms at-home work environment for Wi-Fi into secure, managed office networks in seconds. Businesses can provide and support their distributed network while providing a new age employee perk, powerful, safe, private home Wi-Fi. And if there's a moment, I just wanted to ask if you could unmute Liz to talk about why we founded the company.
Thanks, Gray. When we founded Minim, we set out to create secure home Wi-Fi that had a simple, easy-to-use interface in order to manage home networks. It's what I needed at home, from our sprinkler system controls to our gaming systems to our nursery cameras. We'd amassed an extremely complicated IoT network. We wanted to make sure our family was safe from hackers and bad actors on the internet. It's been a lifesaver, though, for me these last few months as I've continued working from home during this time period. It's a complicated time while my kids have been using our home network for school and for play much more than I'd ever imagined. It's been particularly easy to throttle some of my children's video games and internet usage during important web conference calls. This has been a team project over the years, including all of management, all of our founders, Gray, Nicole, Alec, Jeremy, David, John, Sean, and Andy. I appreciate the Wireless Broadband Alliance for recognizing our work in IoT and home Wi-Fi, and look forward to the bright future that Minim has, helping everyone bring their own network.
Thank you so much for your time, guys. It's a real honor. Thank you for the support.
Yeah, thank you so much for the submission, and congratulations once again. Okay, so in terms of the Enterprise Award, we have as winner Huawei. So with the Wi-Fi 6 deployment that is supporting the digital transformation of this huge manufacturing factory. So let me invite Huawei representative, so Mr. Ji Yang, which is VP of Campus Network Domain, to address the audience with a few words about this deployment and this award. So are you on the line, Mr. Ji?
Okay. Yes, I'm online. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you very well.
Okay, thank you very much. And we are very excited about this award. And I believe that this award is more valuable than Oscar for our team. And okay, so first of all, I would like to thank WBA and especially Tiago and his team, who contribute a lot to the success of this Congress. And in addition, I would like to express my sincere thanks to the judges for your recognition of Huawei solution. And please also give a big round of applause for all the members of companies who have entered the award shortlist. And finally, I would like to thank my team, and it's a very good teamwork. So Huawei launched the L-Engine Wi-Fi 6 solution since 2019. It's a smart antenna, software-defined radio, and IoT convergence technologies have been widely recognized in the industry, and the solutions have served various customers such as enterprise, the education, government, and the manufacturing and the public servicing. Huawei will continue to work with partners to provide the customers with the best solutions and services. We will focus on the user experience, and just as you mentioned that, I believe that the Wi-Fi network will be more focused on the remaining and the experience, and will at the center for the very important to improve the user experience. So we will not only deploy not only deploy a box access point, we will focus on the whole solution to how to improve the whole network, how to improve the experience of each user. So this is very important for us, and we'll try our best. We firmly believe that the 5G changes the society, and Wi-Fi 6 will change the enterprise. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for the submission, and congratulations again. Quite inspiring statements from both Medium and Huawei. So with this, I think, Sarah, we are on to the next categories. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bruno. And again, congratulations to both winners. We haven't had tears yet at the Oscars for the technology industry, but there is still time. But before we get on to that, I would like to introduce our next guest speaker. She describes herself as half social scientist, half technologist, and all academic. Her role, which is actually really interesting, applies design thinking, psychology, anthropology, computing and business consulting to industry, and in her time in BT, has worked in futurology research and customer services. So introducing Dr. Nicola Millard.
Thank you very much. I'm gonna play buzzword bingo. Hopefully you can see my screen. I always say you're on mute and can you see my screen are the two words for the moment, aren't they? So so hopefully you can see my screen there. So yes, hello, my name is Nicola. I used to be a futurologist. I used to be officially BT's futurologist, and fortunately my job title has got a lot less silly, I guess, over the past few years. A bit more boring, maybe you could say. I'm a principal innovation partner. I'm part of BT's innovation team. I always say that I have to put this slide up contractually because actually most of you probably know a lot about BT. A lot of the people I do talk to don't realise that we're an extremely large investor in research and innovation. We were number 3, I think, in the UK in terms of investment in R&I, but I think it's now so difficult to track. I think we're about number 4 at the moment. So we've just said we're top 10 in terms of research and innovation. And I myself am currently standing in my kitchen in Ipswich in the east of England. Normally I would be based at Adastral Park, also known as Martlesham. It's about 7 miles down the road from the point I am standing in. So I get to work with a lot of really fascinating people. I don't do my job on my own. Not only do I work with our own researchers around the world, trying to figure out what's going on, what is the future, what can we expect. I also get to work with some fantastic university partners, and whether that's MIT or Cambridge, you'll see some of the university stuff that we're doing, and obviously working with our own customers, our partners as well, to actually figure out what the future is by inventing it, frankly. So that's kind of what I do. I'm also a slightly unusual part of the innovation team in that I am definitely not the Wi-Fi specialist. I don't know anything much about 5G either, although a lot of people in the team I am in are really good at explaining what it is to me, because I'm actually a psychologist by background. And I think one of the things we're finding is that there's a lot of exciting technology out there, but a lot of customers don't get it and don't really want it either, and don't understand how it will change the ways that we work, rest and play. Hence, I keep saying that the most disruptive part of innovation is not the technology. It's there, but unless we use it, embrace it, and actually use it to change the way that we work, rest and play, it really doesn't work. So my role is to try and look very much more strategically, look at the trends coming out. And today I'm going to cover what I call the Ds that are shaping the future of work, because future of work is very definitely one of our research topics. I've been working on future of work for about 10 years, before it got trendy, of course, and the future of work kind of arrived, I guess, about 7 months ago. So a lot of the trends that we had been tracking just got, as most things in this pandemic, got accelerated. And I know a lot of people have been talking about the fact that digital has maybe been accelerated by about 3 to 5 years in many organizations. So what I'm going to do today is to say, well, okay, let's look at some of the trends. Oddly enough, all of the trends begin with the letter D. I've no idea why, by the way, apart from the fact I'm a huge Sesame Street fan. So those of you who know Sesame Street will know that the session comes at you by the letter D. I can't cover all of the Ds today because I don't have very long, so I'm going to cherry pick a few of the more interesting trends and reflect on how the pandemic has shaped those trends. So, I mean, the first big trend is an obvious one, which is disruption. And it's quite funny because in the future of work, a lot of the stuff that we were talking about prior to the pandemic was around AI and automation and how that was going to completely disrupt the future world of work. Well, in actual fact, AI and automation haven't played quite such a big part in accelerating disruption. And indeed, I normally do talk about AI in the talk under the banner of the droid, but I don't have time today. And to be honest, you know about AI anyway. But we're seeing, you know, something much more microbial, in fact, has changed the ways that we work. Homeworking is the obvious one. It was just talked about just now. The fact that homeworking has been, by necessity, accelerated. But homeworking is an interesting one. I've just celebrated a significant BT anniversary. I joined BT a very long time ago, and one of my first jobs in BT back in 1992 was our first homeworking experiment. So we've been able to work from home for quite a long time. Actually, 1992, it wasn't that practical because we didn't have Wi-Fi, we didn't have broadband, we didn't have 4 or 5G. We literally had to dig people's front gardens up in order to get a big enough pipe into their house. But certainly by 2000, BT had wholeheartedly embraced homeworking. And then, of course, we found that actually permanent homeworking is quite hard, as we're all finding at the moment. So although, and it will vary depending on the geography you're in, the UK, we've seen about a 20% growth generally in homeworking. That's at least employees working at some point during their working week from home. I think the picture at the moment from the research that's coming through, and there's lots of research coming through at the moment, is a few things. Employees are embracing the flexibility that home working gives them, but we're also saying, I would quite like to see people and get out of the house very occasionally. So we're seeing a more hybrid version of work, I think, start to emerge from this massive global work from home experiment that we're all in at the moment. And I think other interesting things around, a lot of people report that typically home workers are 20% more productive. Well, that's largely because they work longer. And again, a lot of BT studies in home working in the past showed that the problem with home workers is stopping them working, not starting them working. So Harvard's global research that they published a couple of weeks ago was saying that in actual fact, what's happened is that typically our average working day has got longer by about 48 minutes, which is productive-ish. I'm not sure it's sustainable for reasons I will go into in a minute. I think the second one I want to talk about, the second D, is this concept of digital workplace, because again, prior to the pandemic, and I work typically with large UK and global corporates, and I also work with public sector in the UK, and I think pretty much every customer I work with have had a digital workplace program or a digital office program in play. BT obviously also has one. I think every company has been thinking about changing the ways that we work, and then of course things got kind of accelerated, and I think the interesting thing, although digital work has been accelerated, I still don't think we're particularly good at defining exactly what digital workplace is. And that's why we've done a lot of research just asking business leaders globally, and this is hot off the press, we haven't actually published this yet, but what you can see here are a couple of pieces of opinion pieces of effectively business leaders around the world, just asking them fundamental questions. Well, what do you want to do with the digital workplace? What do you want to achieve? And to be honest, none of it's particularly surprising. The first thing is we want to get better employee productivity, which makes sense because if we're going to reinvent the way we work, we probably want to reinvent it to make us more rather than less productive. So that's number one. Number two is customer experience. And again, a lot of my work is on how customers want their customer experience delivered. So we need to bear that in mind. And the third one that came up way up the list in terms of priorities from the previous piece of research that we did was enabling remote working for obvious reasons. Now, I think there are a few things that we've started to scratch the surface of here. Productivity is a particularly interesting one because, again, how do we define productivity in a digital workplace? And particularly when we're looking at a lot of workers being knowledge workers, especially. And if you look at the successful workers that have been transferred into the home environment, largely they are knowledge workers. And the trouble with knowledge workers is they are extremely difficult to measure because a lot of the measures that we have are based back in the industrial era of factories and widget manufacturing, and we look at input and we look at output. And I don't know about you, but I don't manufacture many widgets. I'm a knowledge worker. So how do you measure me? And that comes back to how productive actually am I during a working day? Or am I translating productivity into productivity proxies? One of those proxies is time. So I feel I need to work harder and harder. So I add 48 minutes onto my working day, which looks productive, but actually isn't sustainable in the long run. And hence we do tend to see quite high levels of burnout in employees that are working from home that don't manage their time down and don't take breaks. And actually they become less productive as a result. So I think one of the things certainly that we've thrown into the academic space, particularly the guys at MIT, is to say, well, how on earth do we reinvent the measures that we have for productivity as we go into this digital future? I'm not going to give you the answers, by the way, on that one. I think also we're observing from the data that a lot of this has been underpinned by technology. If there was ever a perfect time to have a pandemic, it's probably now. There's probably never a perfect time, but if we look at the technologies that have enabled us to change the ways that we work, so Wi-Fi, the connectivity, the broadband, the unified comms tools, all of those things have helped. Cloud, all of that has enabled us to lift and shift things really rapidly. But we know culture tends to run a little slower than technology. So a lot of the stuff that I'm looking at the moment, and again, this is the data we're about to publish, some of the really human elements involve things like trust. So how do we trust people to work remotely by default rather than trying to micromanage them? Or in even worse, put surveillance technologies in to check up on people. Management itself is being challenged, and there's a lot of, I guess, focus on leaders at the moment, because leaders, it's a hard job to do, actually, remote leadership. We've known this because the digital workplace is a very formal workplace and everything has to be scheduled in 30-minute and 60-minute chunks. And actually, that isn't necessarily particularly great for morale. So we're seeing this sort of trend around leaders having to be very empathetic, leading from the front, creating a sense of purpose. All of that kind of stuff is not necessarily what all leaders are good at, but I think leadership in itself has had a bit of a focus. I think things like culture as well, when we've got an office around us, we can see culture. It's in the branding, we can see behaviors. And again, leaders need to call that out and make that very transparent. But I would say my main anxiety as we go into this future world of work is I call them horrible hybrids. And again, I think most organizations, including BT, has seen horrible hybrids. And horrible hybrids are where you've got the worst of both worlds, but the digital world and the office world colliding. We don't want the worst of both worlds. And by that, I mean the fact if people think that they need to be present in an office in order to be gauged as working successfully, they're going to try and come into an office, and a COVID safe office cannot accommodate everybody. And if you've got office dwellers versus home or remote workers, they can be two tribes, and those two tribes can go to war. Of course, the office itself is a debate. Lots of debates at the moment as to whether offices are dead, particularly amongst CFOs who are saying, well, hey, productivity hasn't gone down significantly, and I've got all of this expensive property that's hardly being used. So do I need it? And the answer is probably yes, maybe not as much of it. But we do know that the office, certainly prior to the pandemic, had a social function, whether we go there to collaborate or communicate or create communities. That's a very core function for offices. During the pandemic, that function shifts a little bit, particularly, I mean, 70% of people are saying, working from home's working for me. 30% are really struggling. And again, that will depend where you are in the world as well. But that 30% typically have small homes, are younger, are urban-based, are extroverts who like people around them, or simply are juggling kids and rest of the family working in that workspace. They're the people you need to prioritize to go into a COVID safe office. So the COVID safe office is a weird office because social distancing means it doesn't have that social function. But I think as we come out of the pandemic, we're already seeing it in some countries that offices do become the places we go, not necessarily to work, but places that we go to socialize about work. And there's a lot of discussion as well, particularly as we've got the climate emergency in the background, as to whether co-working spaces might also be a good stopgap between the centralized urban headquarters where I may need to travel 2 hours to, or can I have a lot greener way of working where if I want to get out of the house, can I walk or cycle to my workplace? So of course, I keep saying this is hybrid working that we're going to be emerging with. It's not about sending everybody home. It's about giving people choices because frankly, everyone is different and everyone has different challenges and preferences and ways to be productive. So a lot of this is around work from anywhere rather than imposing a one size fits all solution. But of course, living at work or working from home, as it's often called, it can be very difficult. And I think one of the big problems that we're seeing in the future is not about connectivity. It's about disconnection, finding the off switch. And again, linked back to productivity, if I feel the pressure to be always on, I'm probably going to be always on and I'm going to get stressed with it. And once I get stressed, I actually don't work terribly well. So we're doing quite a lot of work with Cambridge University and Lancaster University. Actually, this is the Lancaster stuff in the UK around things like techno stress and overload. So looking at the demands that our technology puts on us, ranging from having to juggle constantly around these devices, throwing stuff at me from all directions. The technology maybe isn't as intuitive as it should be, so I have to work hard in order to use it. And obviously we've been very adaptable during this pandemic and started to use things like video conferencing, whereas we never had before. But there are other technologies that, you know, just putting it on someone's desktop doesn't mean they use it. Then there is the pressure to be always on, and we do need to find the off switch because we're human. We need rest. And then finally, things like paranoia drives a lot of behavior. So if I feel as if I'm going to lose my job or lose my job to AI, I want to demonstrate that I'm working really hard and adding huge amounts of value. But my final D I want to cover, I know I'm starting to run out of time, is distance, which is the one that every telecoms company wants to kill. And I think we proved during the pandemic that people are starting to value face-to-face more. Actual fact, what we found from the analysis is that communication within organizations has gone up rather than down. So we're seeing more emails being sent, obvious things like more video being used. That has resulted often in death by meeting days. And I keep saying that's not a problem with the technology. That's probably more a problem with meetings. And we might need to think about, is actually a meeting the best way to solve this problem? Or can we do more in asynchronous space rather than synchrony? And then people missing out on those kind of, I hate to call them coffee point conversations, but the informal stuff, the stuff that isn't agendaized or in a meeting, all those, you know, encounters that we tend to have when we're in physical spaces. How do we build that back into the digital workplace? And I think innovation maybe can help on some of that stuff. And of course, you expect me to talk about this kind of stuff in the innovation space. We have been looking at things like virtual reality and augmented reality to solve some of these collaboration problems and make collaboration a lot richer. I'm not going to talk about all of these. I'm going to pull out one that I think is the most fascinating and actually the most fun at the moment that we're doing with the NHS, the National Health Service here in the UK, where we have our 5G ambulance. And you can see a guy there as a paramedic with an augmented reality headset on and a haptic glove. He's connected back to a doctor in the hospital wearing a VR headset, so the doctor can literally see through the paramedic's eyes and feel what the paramedic is feeling. And obviously that's got a huge impact. Prior to the pandemic, a lot of the medics were going, no, I want to see the patient. Now they're going, we don't really want to see the patients. We can start to maybe hospital admissions. Certainly if they do need to be admitted, the doctor's way up to speed on a lot of this stuff. But everything from, you know, obviously engineering technologies that we can use remote expertise on. The guy in the orange is a crane inspector at Belfast Harbour. We're starting to build in very different ways of collaborating, actually, with the front line, the guys that are actually in the field. And finally, the guy in the overalls there is a miner in China who is driving mining equipment using 5G, allegedly from home, although that doesn't look much like a home, but it does look a little bit like a hyper hyper sophisticated games console. So maybe we can start to transfer not just knowledge jobs home, but also maybe some of those frontline jobs that we thought would require people to be actually in the field. So those were the Ds, some of the Ds driving this transformation of work. So I am going to hopefully stop sharing now. There we go. And hand you back to Sarah.
Nicola, thank you very much. That was a really interesting presentation. We, I'm sure all of us on the call still will recognise many of those elements leading to partial burnout and stuff like that. But I think, you know, one of the great stats that you actually pulled out there, 94% are looking to improve support for remote workers. And I think our industry has a big role to play in doing that. And we've already heard from some of the awards earlier today that is happening. So great opportunity. Thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you. Okay,
so we're now on to the final section of our awards. I would like to take this opportunity to introduce Steve Namasavian. He is the Membership Director and Industry Engagement at the Wireless Broadband Alliance. So Steve, please take it away.
Yes, thank you, Sarah. And thank you also, Nicola, for such an insightful presentation there. I think sharing those findings would have been very interesting to the audience as well. Okay. So moving on to our final two awards, we have the best. The first is the best Wi-Fi for social impact. So this recognizes and celebrates innovation in Wi-Fi-based network services that create social value and benefit society. This can either be a trial or commercial deployment and is open to government and non-government organizations. Last year's worthy winners were Cambrian Networks with their Connecting the Unconnected Service platform. The second award is for Best Wi-Fi Innovation. This recognizes and celebrates innovation and deployments in our ecosystem, which enable seamless and secure Wi-Fi, greater interoperability, and delivers huge benefits to users. This technology will have been deployed in market and is open to network operators and to technology companies. Last year's winners were Samsung Electronics and Broadcom with the Galaxy S10 inbuilt with Wi-Fi 6 and intelligent Wi-Fi technology. So let's take a look at the shortlisted organizations. Okay, so for best Wi-Fi for social impact, we have Aerial Technologies and On Semiconductor, LM Energy and Software, Sutel Fonatel. And for best Wi-Fi innovation, Broadcom, Cisco, and Cognitive Systems. Okay, so I think next we're going to take a look at some short videos on each.
Hello, my name is Mark Hopper, and it is my pleasure to explain to you how Aerial's innovative technology is being used to help our communities. Today, almost everywhere we go, we are blanketed by Wi-Fi. At Aerial, we take advantage of that ubiquity and use the existing Wi-Fi networks to provide motion-based intelligence in order to create smarter services and applications which can be used to improve people's daily lives. When an object moves through a space, it disturbs the Wi-Fi signals. We analyze those disturbances using our AI-trained models to classify the motion, and we then layer on context to provide motion intelligence. Today, close to 30% of our population are considered seniors. The increasing aging population worldwide will require change in how we take care of the elderly community. Aging in place is an example of a growing trend where seniors stay living in their homes as long as they possibly can. COVID-19 is only adding to the need for remote care as seniors continue to remain isolated from their communities and their families. Aerial developed remote care to keep families informed of a loved one's key wellness indicators, their trending behavior, as well as notify the family of any concerning anomalies or potentially urgent situations. This passive, no hardware solution can be provided at low cost and increase the accessibility to remote care services, helping us to take better care of our elder community. Aerial's solution can be deployed on the home router or alternatively by simply installing our motion capture plug, which was built in partnership with ON Semiconductor. Aerial is based in Montreal, Canada, a major hub of AI expertise, and is backed by some of the major players in the telco industry. Please visit our website and follow us on social media to learn more on Wi-Fi sensing intelligence.
Hi, this is Rajesh Kaul. I am the director and founder for Elimius iConnect. Changing lives digital way is what we started as a journey to bring a complete change in the digital penetration in the rural market of India, especially in two states. That's what we took as a first plunge, which is Rajasthan and J&K. In last 3 years, this journey has taken us to close to around 30 odd towns of these two states, and where we have added 1.3 million users as retail users, and approximately 5,000 home users are really connected on this platform. Our prime objective is to build entrepreneurship in this rural market by having retail entrepreneurs who drive the digital penetration. Apart from that, adding social impact in this area, especially with having women folks coming on to the digital platform. Bringing in new use cases, maybe it in the fintech area or be it in the entertainment area or healthcare, which drive the penetration of digital using our Wi-Fi platforms. Close to 2,000 Wi-Fi hotspots deployed in these two states, and we aim to become a 50,000 hotspot company in next 3 years. With a prime objective to monetize. Monetize could be direct and indirect. We are working at both models of fiber and wireless, and we have plans both in terms of home broadband users or enterprise users. Apart from that, for retail users through the Wi-Fi hotspots, we are trying to create a model of both free Wi-Fi as well as paid Wi-Fi. On the free, we have the advertising model or an inventory sale unique model, where we get advertisers who take bulk Wi-Fi hotspots as their place of advertising, and give the end users free data. We look forward to be an enabler for this change and hope the things show up in the next 3 years in terms of bringing change in the rural India. Thank you very much.
We're comparing Wi-Fi 6 setup comprising of the 4375 chip with the 4389, which is the world's first Wi-Fi 6E phone that we just announced. On the screen to the left, you can see the throughput, so the speeds you're seeing are swinging between 200 and 400 megabits per second. To the right is the Wi-Fi 6E setup for the 4389. The chip that is capable of supporting over 2 gigabits per second shows that it is driving speeds north of 2 gigabits per second.
This year, Cisco is really excited to submit Open Roaming, Changing the Way the World Attaches to Wi-Fi for the WBA Mobile Wireless Global Congress Awards. You know, Open Roaming has a long history. WBA has been working on these kinds of technologies going back many years. In fact, we leverage things like Passpoint in order to make sure that Open Roaming can be applied with any device, anywhere. So the idea here is to solve with Open Roaming this automatic and secure onboarding on any network and with any identity. This is what the open means. And I think what that gives us is this ability to roam in between enterprise and service provider, whether it's a managed service or it's an IT deployed service. Now we can go in and out of networks very seamlessly. But it also allows for meeting carrier class SLA. It also, or enterprise SLA for that matter. It also allows us to solve this privacy issue with MAC and these new technologies on devices for MAC rotation, because now we can use a secure identity and a fixed identity for providing network services. And then last, it enables a service layer where we can do things like billing and mediation and translation between authentication, different authentication services or mechanisms. So we're pretty excited about open roaming. We're pretty excited about what WBA is doing with it. And we look forward to seeing this grow out and through the industry in the coming years.
Okay, so big congratulations to Fonatel and SPC on winning the award for Best Wi-Fi for Social Impact, and to Cognitive Systems for Best Wi-Fi Innovation. I think we would like to try and get some of the participants up to speak. So we have Adrian Maison from Fonatel and Marcial Riviero from SPC here to accept the award, and perhaps see if they can also say a few words.
Thank you. Yes, we're very honored and excited of receiving this award. And on behalf of SUTEL and all the public and private sorry, I think we had a problem with the microphone. No, I was saying we are very honored, really, and excited of receiving this award on behalf of SUTEL and all the public and private partners involved in Fonatel projects, particularly NI also. I want to thank we are very excited and want to thank the organization for this award. And SUTEL makes a great effort to execute the Universal Service Funds in Costa Rica in projects that have a positive social impact for people. We currently have more than 30 projects in execution, And this program in particular that uses Wi-Fi technology is our most successful so far. And I really hope this award will help to promote this kind of projects in other countries, and hopefully it will be taken as a good practice to use Universal Service Fund. So thank you once again.
Hello? Can you hear me? Oh my God. Okay, I unfortunately I can't hear you, but it sounds like you can hear me. Thumbs up to that? Okay. So yeah, we're
Hi, Chris. Hi, sorry, apologies. We had a technical problem there with the unmute. So maybe just to wind it back a second or two, just to introduce yourselves as winners of this Best Wi-Fi Innovation Award as well. So big congratulations to Cognitive Systems as well. Also, for your contributions inside the WBA, firsthand we experience how you're driving our ecosystem forward. So a big thank you for that as well. But yeah, I think we're there. Maybe you can share a few words. We have Chris Begg, who's the analog designer from Cognitive Systems. I'm not sure if we also have the CEO Taj Manku as well. But gents, perhaps you could share a few words.
Sure. This is Taj here. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay. Always have to check that, right?
Yes,
so
that's right.
we're certainly extremely excited and honored to and humble to getting this award, given the competition that we're up against, like the great companies of Broadcom and Cisco. And we really we went on a journey with you guys, when we started, which was in 2018, and WBA has been incredible to us. We started off with a small number of members in the Wi-Fi sensing, and now we're already, I think, around 200 plus or so. And so we really thank you and the Wi-Fi sensing group within WBA. And if it wasn't for our incredible staff at Cognitive, and I know you guys interact a lot with Chris Beggs, we would never be able to get to this point. So I really do appreciate all the effort they've done, and all our partners. And for us, when we started on this journey, right, we're trying to get on a number of chipsets, but now we are around 17 chipsets, and we have around more than 100,000 enabled devices out there with our customers and partners. So we went through this journey, and you guys were part of it. It's been an incredible journey, and we're really humbled that to take this award. I do appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris, as well. We, as I said, have been working closely with Cognitive over the years as well. So I think everybody appreciates what you bring to the table as well, and it's well deserved. Okay, so those were our final two awards. So I think we're drawing towards the end. So what we'd like to do next is hand back over to our WBA CEO, Tiago Rodriguez, for some final remarks and to close out.
Yeah, thank you so much, Steve. It's been a fantastic session. I want to start by give a big thank you to our panel of independent judges. I know that it's very hard work. You guys put a lot of time, your expertise on these awards. I know that it's very difficult to select between so many good projects, but I want to thank you for all your efforts, and I think you are a key element to make these awards so relevant and so successful. I want to thank you as well, all the participants on the awards. We had a very big number of submissions. We saw today just a small list of all the submissions. Today, all the shortlisted and the winners, definitely they deserve our congratulations. It's all fantastic projects. It shows how dynamic and innovative this industry is. So for all of you shortlisted, and in particular to the winners, congratulations. I recommend that you follow Nicola advice. Take a break, don't take your phone, disconnect your laptop, have a drink or a coffee or a tea, or go out walking your dog, whatever meets your desires and interests, but please take a break to celebrate these awards. From our side, I just want to thank once more our sponsors for making this event possible. So Boeing, Cisco, Intel, Aptilo, Global Reach, Huawei, Single Digits, STL, Juniper, HCA Cognitive, On Semiconductor, and YConnect. Thank you so much for supporting us. I want to leave the message as well. Our event continues next week. So on Monday, we have a fantastic webinar on the next generation of Wi-Fi, where we talk a lot about the latest advances for consumer market, but as well for enterprise. And then on Thursday, the 5th of November, we'll do a deep dive on guest Wi-Fi, public Wi-Fi with open roaming, Wi-Fi roaming, and Passpoint. Once more, just to finish, congratulations to all the winners. Thank you everyone for joining. Stay safe. Have a fantastic rest of the day, and looking forward to see you next week. Thank you everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.